Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, the news broke yesterday, and apparently last night there was even more breaking news, but here it is in a nutshell. Former FBI Director James Comey, one of the architects of the Russia collusion hoax, one of the key members of the deep state that did everything in his power to try to bring down President Trump, frame him as an agent of Russia, is now indicted on 2 felony counts. And apparently now, this broke last night, an arrest warrant has been issued by the Eastern District of North Carolina, and we shall see in the next day or so whether he will actually be perp walked. I hope he is, or whether he'll be allowed to present himself with his lawyer in front of a judge. But either way, James Comey now will be arrested. He faces now 2 indictments, or an indictment with 2 felony counts. Each of them carry up to 10 years in prison. So in total, he's looking at potentially 20 years behind bars. The first count is threatening the life of the President of the United States. The second count stems from the first count, that he used interstate communications to threaten the President of the United States. And it stems back to what he did last year, if you remember, that infamous Instagram post in which Comey put out on his Instagram account and other social media platforms that famous picture of a pattern of seashells that he just says he and his wife happened to discover on the beach in North Carolina, where it was laid out 8647. And then he took the picture, he then sent it out, and he said, "Wow, what a cool seashell formation. Look what I just found here." 86 is common slang, especially in the restaurant industry, but just commonly in bars and other places, to either kill something on the menu or get rid of a patron or get rid of somebody. And of course, 47 refers to President Trump, who is now the 47th President of the United States. It was clearly a call, a coded call, and frankly not so cryptic, but it was clearly a call for someone to murder or assassinate the President of the United States. 8647. Kill President Trump, or get rid of President Trump. Wink, wink. Now, he denied it, the liar that he is. He claimed that it was his wife that found the seashell formation, essentially throwing her under the bus. He then went on to claim, "I have no idea what 86 means. What does that mean? I don't know. My wife thought, look at this. James, take a look at this. 8647. Is that somebody's address that they've just put out here on the sand?" Nobody is buying his bogus explanation. Everybody knows, he knows what 86 means. It is, as I said, it is restaurant or bar slang to kill something on the menu, to get rid of something on the menu, to throw somebody out if they're being unruly, whatever. It means to get rid of or to eliminate. And we know what 47 is, the President of the United States. And what that post said, and what it connotated, and there is no doubt about this, is how much Comey despises and hates Trump. And it has been part of the left's attempt to not just vilify and demonize and defame the president. Ugly as that is, sickening and repulsive as that is. But it is clearly part of their design to get him killed or assassinated. And it is no accident that these two counts, this indictment, was announced days after what happened at the Washington Correspondents' Dinner in Washington, D.C., where there was a third attempted assassination on the life of President Trump. And so yesterday, at a press conference, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, flanked by FBI Director Kash Patel and the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, Ellis Boyle, announced that this time there's going to be no technicality for James Comey to wiggle out of. This time they believe they have him dead to rights. Listen now. This is the U.S. Attorney, Ellis Boyle, for the Eastern District of North Carolina, saying a grand jury looked at all the evidence, at the witnesses that we presented, at all the documents, and now they are charging Comey with committing not one, but two felonies. Roll cut one, Mike.
Earlier today, a grand jury in the Eastern District of North Carolina returned a true bill indicting Mr. James Comey with committing two felonies. Count one, he knowingly and willfully made a threat to kill and to inflict bodily harm upon the President of the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 871A. Count two, he knowingly and willfully transmitted in interstate and foreign commerce a communication that contained a threat to kill President Trump in violation of 18 U.S.C. 875C.
Yes. Finally. And hopefully that's going to wipe that smug, arrogant smile off of his face. Because this guy Comey has been getting away with crime after crime after crime. This has been going back 10 years. And he thinks he's Mr. Untouchable. Now, the point I want to stress is that when he was indicted last year, and this was for lying to Congress and obstruction of justice, and the indictment came down just days before the 5-year statute of limitations was about to run out. Comey got away on a technicality. The only reason why he was not fully prosecuted, and I'm telling you, he would have gone to jail, because he clearly lied to Congress. There's no question. He clearly committed perjury. There's no question. He clearly obstructed justice. No question. Was because of the interim appointment of Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. Attorney. And so a judge ruled that her appointment was unlawful, it was improper or illegal, and so on that technicality, they threw the case out. They basically said Lindsay Halligan was improperly authorized or appointed, and hence she doesn't have the right to bring these charges against Comey. It had nothing to do with the merits of the case. So as I said on X last night, and I'm going to repeat it, he got away the first time last year on a technicality. Now he's not going to get away a second time on some technicality. And I believe he's going down. I think there's no question he's going down. And to me, the irony of all ironies is what's going to bring James Comey down. If you remember, one of the dirty tricks that he, along with Obama and his Comey's underling, Andrew McCabe, the deputy FBI director, they destroyed General Michael Flynn, who in Trump's first term, if you remember, was his first national security advisor. And they brought him in for a routine, what they said was a routine interview. and even told him, don't bring a lawyer. No, we're just going to dot some I's and cross some T's, when in fact they set a perjury trap. They lied to him, misled him, and then claimed that he gave false statements during the investigation while they were asking him questions. Well, let me tell you how they're going to get Comey this time. Not only do they have the pictures and the threats and witnesses that say he knew exactly what 8647 meant, but when he was talking to investigators, he lied. He lied, which is a very serious crime. And so you want to talk about poetic justice. Former FBI Director James Comey now in the hot seat. He's in trouble, and I think he knows he's in trouble. 6:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868 is the number. So just very quickly, he was indicted yesterday on 2 felony counts from the Eastern District of North Carolina. This is clearly in coordination with the Department of Justice. And Comey now is going to face 1 count of threatening the life of President Donald Trump and a 2nd count of using interstate commerce or interstate communications to issue a threat against the President of the United States. Each count carries up to 10 years in prison in total. He is facing potentially 20 years behind bars. And this all stems from that infamous Instagram post, that seashell pattern or formation that he claims he just Shazam. He was walking on the beach and just there it is in North Carolina on the beach right there. 8647, which clearly stands for assassinate President Trump, kill President Trump. And Comey now has gotten his lawyers. They say they're going to fight this with everything they have. Good luck. But what is now clear, and I'd love to get your take, the best audience in the business, is that this is now Todd Blanche's Department of Justice. He is the interim fill-in for Pam Bondi. He's the interim acting U.S. Attorney General. And you can already see now, much more aggressive, much more proactive, and not willing to just sit back and run to Fox News and get her hair done and do interviews. They are going after deep state criminals and deep state operatives. And it's not just James Comey. There are other high-profile prosecutions and indictments that have been issued over the last couple days. This is by far the biggest one. And so, to me, what it shows is it is now a different Department of Justice. It is not Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. And Trump has given the order. I want these deep state Democrats and deep state criminals to be held accountable for their crimes. And Comey now, Brennan, by the way, looks like he may be indicted in the next couple of weeks. So the dominoes are starting to fall. Now, what is very clear is that the media is doing everything in their power to circle the wagons around Comey. CNN is already trying to claim that this is the weakest indictment they've ever seen. Right. Compared to what? The stuff that they were indicting Donald Trump on? Just to give an example. So compared to the garbage they went after Donald Trump on, you mean to tell me threatening the life of the President of the United States is not, is not more serious than what they did to Trump and how they tried to frame him? So what is very clear that they know several things. That Comey was one of the key point men, okay, one of the key figures, maybe in some ways the point man, in the effort by the media and the deep state and the Obama regime to frame Trump as an agent of Russia. In other words, to launch a coup against a duly elected president of the United States and to frame him as a traitor and as an agent of the Kremlin. And there's no question Comey was central in that conspiracy. That's number one. Number two, pictures don't lie. You put out 8647, as President Trump rightly said. Everybody knows what that means. His intent couldn't be clearer. He was calling for the assassination or the murder of President Trump. And this is something now that the left has been doing since before he got reelected. This is a sickness within the deep state, within the Democrats, and within the media. And so the grand jury looked at all the evidence, and I'm going to play you the cut. There's Todd Blanche saying, what, you think we just relied on that picture, on that famous Instagram post? We have witnesses who are going to testify that he knew exactly what 86 meant and that he knew exactly what 8647 meant. We have documents. We have a paper trail. Now, I want you to just stand back for a second. The former director of the FBI was calling last year, May of last year. So Trump was barely, what was he, a couple months into his presidency. And he's calling for the murder or the assassination of the President of the United States? And the context was crystal clear. We couldn't prevent him from getting on the ballot. We couldn't lock him up and put him behind bars to prevent him from running again. We couldn't steal the election like we did in 2020. We did everything possible to try to stop him from coming back to power. Now he's back in power. Wink, wink. Somebody take him out. There's no question in my mind. So my question to you, and I want to start taking calls, 617-266-6868. What do you make of the indictment of Comey, the arrest warrant being issued, and the fact now that Comey will be prosecuted for that infamous Instagram post, 8647? Will they get him? Will he be found guilty? And was he calling for the murder of President Trump? And do you agree with the DOJ's decision? Okay, James Comey indicted again. And this time, there's going to be no technicality to get these charges thrown out. He's going to have to go to court, it looks like. He will be fully prosecuted, and he will face a jury of his peers. And this time, it won't be in the District of Columbia, or it won't be in Manhattan in front of a rabidly partisan Democrat jury. It's going to be in the Eastern District of North Carolina. So Comey better get some very, very good lawyers because he's going to need them. Now, Robert sent me a really interesting message on Messenger. And I want to run it by you, the best audience in the business, and get your take and your reaction. Jeff, what do you think about Jonathan Turley's opinion today that Comey will not be convicted? That apparently Turley went on to say that he would he'd rather crawl into one of Comey's conversant shells than write a column supporting him. However, Turley says the fact is that I believe that this indictment is facially unconstitutional, absent some unknown new facts. To convict Comey, the Justice Department will have to show that his adolescent picture, that infamous photo, the 8647, the seashells, was a quote-unquote true threat under 18 U.S.C. Section 871, and 875C, and it is not. So according to Turley, who's a legal analyst on Fox, professor at Georgetown University, he says it was stupid, it was childish, it was immature, it was reprehensible, but it does not qualify as a genuine, true threat, and therefore he's going to walk. That in the end, Comey is going to skate. It may go all the way to trial, but that the jury will find him innocent or not guilty. And that's going to be a defeat for Trump and for the administration, because then Comey will claim that he was vindicated, that they tried to indict him not once, but then they indicted him a second time, and both times he won. And so eventually Comey is going to become invulnerable and bulletproof, and the very serious crimes that he committed on top of this, he will eventually get away with. And so there are some conservative commentators who fear that this case is a weak case and should never have been brought forward. Do you agree? I'm just curious. 617-266-6868. My position, and it's funny because I was talking about this with Sandy while we were not off air, before the show started. And as you know, Sandy is a lawyer. She's got a law degree. She's a trained legal mind. And I thought she made a very strong argument saying, well, first of all, we don't know what the grand jury saw. Everybody's assuming that they know the evidence. They don't know the evidence. And as Todd Blanche said repeatedly yesterday, and I'm going to play the cut, where he says, we didn't just take the picture and say, okay, let's indict this guy. This has been going on for months. This has been a long investigation. We left no stone, or in this case, no seashell unturned. And we have witnesses. We have corroborating documents. We have a lot more evidence that we are going to show to the jurors and eventually to the American people. And what we're going to prove is that Comey clearly sent a message calling for the president to be assassinated, killed, or murdered. And that is illegal under the law. It's a crime. And as Blanche said it, by the way, we've been indicting others who have threatened to kill the president and Joe Biden. And we've had successful prosecutions. They've gone to jail. Now, this is a more unique case because of the person, Comey, and the defendant. It's so high profile. But we've dotted the same I's and crossed the same T's. So, look, if they have what they say they have, and I believe that they do, Comey's going to go down. And when you really think about it objectively, the hubris, the arrogance, the sense of impunity that you're just above the law. I mean, how stupid can you be just from an objective point of view? You would think with all of the crimes that this man has committed and everything that he has done, the damage to our country, never mind to the presidency, never mind to the stability of the United States, look what he has done to the reputation of the FBI. The FBI in many ways is never going to recover from what James Comey did. Its credibility is shot. It has lost much of its legitimacy and moral authority. So the damage that he has done, and you'd think after all of this, if I were him, I would just slink away, fade away into the sunset. But no. Anti-Trumper that he is, never Trumper that he is, consumed by TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, this idiot has to post this picture and blast it out on Instagram and social media. Number one, Okay, the first lie, and I'm telling you, they're going to get him on lie after lie. That's the other thing. He lied to investigators, and this is going to come out. And that's perjury, my friend. So it's not just these two counts. They're going to get him on others. This is only the beginning. The first lie is that he said it was just sitting there on the beach. That he was just walking, and you got these seashells and in this perfect formation. Look at this. 86, little space in the sand, 47. Wow, what a coincidence. We just found it. I don't believe him. I don't believe him. And then the loser says, well, really, it wasn't me, it was my wife, Patrice. Patrice said, James, this is his story. James, look what I just found, James. Look at this. Darling, what does this mean? No. They put that seashell formation together. They thought it was funny. We're going to put a coded message. Ha, 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 ha. So they put together their 8647. And then he blasted it out on social media. And he's coy. He's cunning. He's Machiavellian. That's how you survive in the FBI, and that's his modus operandi. And he said, let me call for the president to be murdered, but I'm going to play a little stupid. I'm not going to say in the sand, murder Trump or assassinate Trump. No. We're going to play with some games. We're going to go 86, wink, wink. We all know what that means. And we're going to go 47. Kill or get rid of 47. And if they come, the Secret Service comes to investigate, Patrice, you play stupid, and I play stupid. Well, he got too cute by half. He got too cute for his own good. Because it's very clear what he meant. And these kinds of lies and shenanigans, this may work in front of a partisan Democrat jury in Washington or in Manhattan, where they're looking to get a guy like Comey off to begin with, because he's part of La Resistance, the resistance to Trump. But now we're dealing in the Eastern District of North Carolina. And there you're going to have sensible people with a lot of common sense who are going to look at this and say, nah, I don't believe it. They're going to show witnesses that walked on the beach and they never saw the 8647 seashell formation. They're like, well, no, we were just there 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. We didn't see anything. So how did it suddenly magically appear? He lied. So that means you put it together. Well, why would you put it together? What's the intent? And you're going to have other witnesses come out and say, no, he said 86, this guy. By the way, he's been using that term 86 forever. You got people who worked with him said, well, no, we're going to 86 this guy. We're going to 86 that. He knows perfectly well what 86 means. Hell, I never worked in the bar or restaurant business in my life. And I know what it means to 86 something. Okay? Me, Jeff Kuhner. Mr., really, trust me, I don't have much of a social life. Okay, it's work and wife and kids. That's pretty much it. So if I know what 86 means.
Mr. Comey will be given every form of due process all citizens are entitled to receive, to include a trial by a jury of his peers. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, it doesn't matter who you are. We take all threat cases seriously and prosecute anyone who violates federal law, regardless of title or status.
That was the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, W. Ellis Boyle. And he's telling everyone, he goes, listen, don't ignore the media. Ignore the media. We've got a lot of evidence. It's not just the Instagram post. We got a hell of a lot more. We have been compiling evidence, details, facts, and we're going to put together a devastating case. So we shall see. They look like very serious, both Blanche and Boyle, as well as Kash Patel, look A, supremely confident, and B, very, very serious. So as I said before we left for the break, I think Comey's in big trouble. Big trouble. Now, just very, very quickly, this is from Cheryl, who emailed me on email. Good morning, Jeff. Well, good morning to you, Cheryl. Congratulations to Todd Blanche to have the balls to go after James Comey, unlike Pam Bondi. I hope he goes down quickly. He destroyed Michael Flynn and his family, and there needs to be repercussions. I couldn't agree with you more, Cheryl. And the irony of all ironies is that he set a perjury trap for Michael Flynn to destroy him. That's what Comey did, he and McCabe. And now it looks like they're going to get him not just for threatening the president's life or calling for someone to kill the president, but when he was interrogated, when investigators were asking him questions about that post, that infamous 8647 post, he lied. Comey lied. It's poetic justice. And they're going to destroy him for lying to investigators the way he and McCabe destroyed Michael Flynn. And that's why I said last night, and I want to say it again, perp walk him and lock him up. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very, very quickly, this is from Mark on Messenger. And honestly, this is the checkmate argument. This is it. I mean, boom, drop the mic. Here it is. Jeff, let me ask you this. If you or I posted 8647 all over social media, would that be considered a threat? Question mark. Would we be brought in for questioning, asking us what does that mean? What do you think, Jeff? Should we test it out and see what happens? Laugh out loud. In other words, imagine anyone else did it. You or, not that we would, but just for the sake of argument. Okay? 8647. What do you think would happen? Or here, let's leave Trump out of it. 8646, i.e. Biden, 46th president of the United States. So if I put out on social media, look at this, 8646, liberals would be up in arms. The Secret Service would be knocking on my door saying, hey, buddy, they're calling for to murder or assassinate the President of the United States. So, if anybody else said 8647, everybody knows there would be at a minimum a visit by the Secret Service. Suddenly, when it comes to James Comey, according to his defenders in the media, and by the way, they're defending him because they've been in bed with him. He was one of their big sources. He was the one that fed him all the lies and propaganda about Russia collusion and God knows everything else. So they have to defend him. He's one of them. But now they're like, this is such a weak case. My God, I can't believe they would even do this. Right. As Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent in Pittsburgh, so I thought said it very well. Jeff, what if we write 86 Comey? See how he likes it. Well, if you write 86 Comey, that's considered a death threat. So, Dave, touche. Dave also asks, and I think makes a very good point, Jeff, please tell me, hopefully, that some deep state liberal hack judge will not dismiss these charges. Now, that's the other thing why Comey's very worried, and the media is worried. This is not going to be an Obama-appointed judge. nor a Biden-appointed judge. The judge that will be presiding over this case in North Carolina is a George W. Bush-appointed judge. In other words, a Republican judge. So finally, we're going to get a trial where you're going to have, it looks like, an impartial or fairly impartial, fair judge, and where the Department of Justice and the prosecution can lay out all of the facts. And let me tell you one other bonus, and then I want to go to the phones. Comey now has hired some of the biggest, most expensive lawyers in Washington. One of his strategies was to bankrupt Michael Flynn until he would just admit to anything, agree to anything. You know, that's a key part of lawfare. You just charge him and charge him and charge him, and then force people to get these extremely expensive lawyers, and then they go bankrupt in the process, and before you know it, they just agree or sign anything you put in front of them because they don't want to lose everything, including their house. I want Comey to spend millions on lawyers. What comes around goes around. He bankrupted Michael Flynn. Hopefully this prosecution will bankrupt Comey. 6-1. You know what they say? Karma's a bee, baby. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Larry in Arkansas. You're going to kick us off, Larry. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeff's got a question for you. What do Arkansas divorces and tornadoes have in common?
But they're destructive?
Sooner or later, someone's losing their mobile home. But I digress.
Larry, what do you make of the indictment of Comey? And do you think this is going to go to trial?
Jeff, first let me disqualify the calls that are going to come in maybe from Bill or Ben or any other liberal idiots. What was Al Capone's biggest crimes?
Well, you mean the real crimes or what they got him for?
Exactly. You know exactly where I'm going with it. Murder, racketeering, gambling, prostitution. What did he go down for?
Tax evasion.
Exactly. They couldn't get him on the other stuff, so they found a crime that they could get him on. Everyone knew why he was on trial. It wasn't for the tax evasion. That's essentially what you have with going after Comey like this. Another problem was, like Judge Janine was complaining that she had rock-solid warrants written out, and the liberal judges in D.C. wouldn't sign them. That's been the problem with the Obama appointees, the Biden appointees, and more nefarious is all these DAs and judges that George Soros got put into power. Not to mention you've got 90% Democrat juries that are deliberately nullifying cases to keep the deep state out of trouble. That's why you're seeing this in Carolina. That's why there's a big grand jury working in Florida. They're trying to keep it out of New York and D.C. And that's been some of the problems with trying to bring these deep staters to justice.
Oh, that's a great point, Larry. And Larry, look, just to bring it full circle to the arrogance of Comey, to the hubris, you know, how smug, he just thinks he's untouchable. You know, you're doing this on a beach in North Carolina. Hence, the crime was committed in North Carolina. It's not going to be tried in D.C. or in Manhattan. As an FBI director, he should know that. So he was so entitled, again, so full of himself, that he thought he could threaten the President of the United States. In fact, call for the murder of the president, and that nothing would happen to him. Nothing. That there would not be even a scintilla of a possibility that somehow the Secret Service would pay him a visit and that he may actually get charged. Because by doing it in North Carolina, as you rightly put it, it's a very different grand jury there than it is in D.C. or New York. You get these cases out of D.C. and New York, and you're in trouble because you're dealing with a different jury pool. You're dealing with normal Americans, not with these, crazed TDS partisan Democrats. So that's why on many, many levels, you can tell Comey is nervous. The media is very nervous. Blanche Patel and the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, Boyle, they're cool as a cucumber. I mean, you could tell on them. They're like, no, we got him. We got him 6 ways to Sunday. And we're going to peel this like an onion right in front of that jury, piece by piece by piece. And Comey is going to squirm as he sits in that courtroom because all he had to do was keep his mouth shut. And he would have gotten away, as you rightly put it, with, the Al Capone analogy, with treason, with abuse of power, with launching a coup, you name it, crime after crime after crime. And it looks like they're going to get him on this idiot putting a seashell formation because he couldn't help himself to call for the offing of the president. Larry, in the end, do you believe Comey will go down? What say you?
I do think he will, because like you just described, this whole situation, this is not D.C., this is not a bunch of Democrats trying to keep him out of jail, which kills me that they're that, talk about cult. They're that loyal to a fault that they would let people off the hook just to get back at the Trump administration. But it's the same thing with the Southern Poverty Law Center. That was done in Alabama, right?
Yes.
That was purposeful. They could have done it anywhere in the country, but because they had, they reach out on a national level, they could get them in a state outside of New York or D.C. Comey's in deep doo-doo. I'm pretty sure he'll go down for this. And I also heard that they got the assistant to Fauci.
That's right, yeah, David Moran's. That was another high-profile indictment. And this one is fascinating, Larry, because they got Moran's, but really, he participated in the crimes. There's no question. But they're Fauci's crimes. So the only thing keeping Fauci up now is that preemptive pardon, which many people think is illegal because Biden used the auto pen, or someone used the auto pen on behalf of Biden. But the point is now, Fauci's people around him are now being indicted. And I'll tell you this, Moran's is already saying, I'm not going down for Fauci's crimes. Moran's is already saying, whoa. This was all approved by Fauci. It's like going back to your Capone analogy. This is like the number 2 capo, the number 2 to the mafia don, and saying, whoa, hey, no, I was just acting on his orders. Hey, no, I'm not going to take the fall for this. He ordered me to take this guy out. He ordered me to embezzle the money. He ordered me to shake him down. He ordered me to traffic and deal the drugs. I'm not going to be the fall guy. So now the problem is that they're going to come out and say Fauci was the one who approved everything, masterminded everything. And the pressure is going to build to negate that pardon of Fauci on the grounds of the auto pen. What's incredible, Larry, is you get rid of Pam Bondi. What has it been? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? Not even? And look how many indictments. Look how many people already are starting to go down. And that's what was obvious to me and to so many others. This woman didn't do a damn thing except go to the hair salon and do interviews on Fox. Because the moment Todd Blanche has moved in, you've got indictments coming out the wazoo. Larry, as always, thank you so much for that call. Excellent points, as usual. 617-266-6868. Brooke in Tennessee. Thanks for holding, Brooke, and welcome.
Jeff,
Hi,
good
Brooke.
morning.
Good morning, Brooke.
As much as I think Comey is the most despicable person that's ever walked the halls of the FBI building, there's a lot of legal hurdles, and that I see that that the prosecution will have to get over before this is going to come to fruition. Number one, as I recall, when it first broke the story, wasn't it his position that he was walking along the beach and he saw these seashells that were arranged along the beach?
Yes.
He didn't arrange them, correct?
He says he didn't arrange them. That's
Okay.
what his claim is. But there
Okay.
are now witnesses, and Blanche is going to show this Boyle is going to show this, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of North Carolina, that there were other people on the beach, and they said there was no formation when they walked by.
Okay.
In other words, that it only could have been there because he put it there. Now, besides that, that's a lie. He
Okay.
lied to
In fact-
investigators.
Right. If they have, several witnesses, one or two, that's not going to cut it. If there's several witnesses, he may have a problem with that. With that testimony. If it was taken under oath, and then you do have a perjury charge there. Number two, when I was in the military in the 70s, I remember we were out on a work detail, like policing the area around the barracks, and the sergeant came out and he yelled, "Hey, you got to, 86 this, we got to go." And, to me, 86 has a lot of connotations, a lot of meanings to different people. Obviously, he didn't mean it, kill this. He meant stop this. We got to go, to wherever else we went. So I think that's going to be a problem because it means a lot of things to a lot of different how you interpret.
No, you're right. No, look, he can weasel out of it. Brooke, you're very perceptive. He can weasel out of it because what he could say or what he could have said. See, if he was smart, he would have said, "No, I meant like the 25th Amendment. Just get rid of him. I don't mean kill him. I just mean like he's got to go. That's all I meant." But you see, he lied because when investigators asked him, and this was under oath, he said, "I have no idea what 86 means. I have no idea. I never heard that term before in my life. I never used the term. I never heard of the term." So, and now they got witnesses at the FBI, colleagues who said he used the term all the time. So what I'm saying is, if he was smart and a little more humble, he would have been in the clear. He could have wiggled out of it. But now his big mouth is going to get him in trouble. In fact, I'm going to play, Brooks, just a little bit later, Brooke, I'm going to play a cut of a video that he posted on Substack after the indictment was issued yesterday. And Sandy was the one, to be fair. She picked up on it. And she said to me, "Boy, he's got a big mouth." Because at the end, he says something that could be interpreted as a threat to the president. You see, he can't stop talking because he's too much of a narcissist. He thinks too well of himself. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And it's people like that that end up getting trapped, or as they say, hoisted in their own petard. And that's his problem. No, his excuse was, "I don't know what 86 means." Apparently he says he never heard the term in his life. And that's where they're going to kill him. He's going to become a witness after witness. They're going to have documents showing him using the term 86. Just watch. So he's going to have to twist himself into a pretzel to try to explain this one. Brooke, please, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going, my friend.
To say that's what a jury has to decide. I'm a retired sheriff's detective, 28 years, and I've been involved in lots of court cases, a lot of investigations. And first of all, it's never a slam dunk. I don't care what your evidence is, how strong it is, how weak it is. You never know how a jury is going to, what kind of a verdict they're going to return. This is not a grand jury. Grand jury just has to show it's a probable cause. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the jury in a criminal, in a full force criminal trial. But so you could never really depend upon that, because I've seen juries go wonky at the last.
Oh no, you're right, and maybe they obsess over a certain technicality, or no. I hear you, Brooke. Look, it's always a chance, a crapshoot. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Wednesday, 7:20-ish. You know what that means, huh? Truth or troll? Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Democrat Senator from Washington State, Patty Murray, in a press conference the other day where she vehemently denies Democrats wanting to abolish ICE.
I have not heard one Democrat say defund ICE. Yeah. What I have heard every single Democrat repeatedly say, when you fund ICE agents, then make sure they have training, make sure they have warrants, make sure they act like law enforcers, and have the ability to have the trust of the American people. That's what we're asking for.
So I don't know what the hell she's talking about. But here's a question. Is she just trolling here, or does she think she's actually telling the truth?
Mike, let me turn it back on you if you don't mind. What is she smoking, Mike?
There are many things that she could be smoking.
What is she on, Mike? Because you're younger than I am. You're basically half my age. So, you're more into the sort of the lingo for this sort of stuff than I am.
Well, she is from Washington State, so it could be a whole variety of different things and substances.
I mean, are those magic mushrooms, Mike? Is she sniffing glue? Is it just the marijuana now? Is it that potent? Because I don't know what this woman is smoking. I don't know what drug she's taking. But either she's fried her brains on that stuff, or this is the biggest pile of Bravo Sierra bullcrap I've ever heard in my life. I mean, we've never called for ICE to be defunded. That's all you do is call for ICE to be defunded. What are you talking about? So, Mike.
Why do you think the government is shut down?
I mean, checkmate, Mike. So the only, you're putting me in a tight spot because you're like, well, Jeff, is she telling the truth or is she trolling? And I'm like, well, maybe her mind is so gone, with the drugs, that she's so fried that she believes this. Yeah, man. Oh, that's good stuff, man. Oh, yeah, man. Oh, hey, man, we're not defunding anything, man. What are you talking about, man? So half of me says, I don't know, maybe the woman is so freaking gone, she's so stoned, or has done so much damage to her brain with drug use over the years that she believes it, or this is the mother of all trolls. So, tough one, Mike. I'm going to go with troll. I just don't want to believe that a senator would do that much drugs that there's nothing left upstairs. You know what I'm saying, Mike? So, all right, I'm going to go with troll. that this is just pure BS. But anyway, okay, I want to ask you, the great audience of Kuhner Country, Senator Patty Murray, uber Democrat, uber liberal from Washington. She says the Democrats have never, ever, ever called for ICE to be defunded, ever. Even though, as Mike said, they're shutting the Department of Homeland Security down over defunding. Over defunding ICE, okay? But, let that go. Is she A, telling the truth, meaning she believes this, i.e., the mind is gone. Oh, yeah. Let me take another drag, man. Oh, yeah. Or is she just consciously, lying? I mean, lying through her teeth, trolling, BSing. A, truth. B, troll. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Okay, just very, very quickly, because I want to go back to the phones. By the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. I want to give a special shout-out to Paul Hallinan. Hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Paul and his son David are avid listeners of the Kuhner Report, and Paul is David's father. Paul, if you're listening, I want you to know that you are in my thoughts. 617-266-6868 is the number. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Before I begin, I just want to give a quick shout-out. I thoroughly enjoyed the time that we had on air last week with Sandy, and I think Sandy Shack is an outstanding stand-in host for when the Kuhner man is away.
Well, thank you for that, Andy. I got a lot of positive feedback on Sandy's job last week. Forgive me. Apparently, a lot of you were very happy with Sandy as the fill-in. So she's going to continue to be the fill-in. No question about it going into the future. So, but Andy, trust me, you're not the only one. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, because it gives me a chance to, take a vacation with my family and not worry that the show's in bad hands. With her, I know the show is in excellent hands. Andy, on that nice note, please, what do you make of Comey, the indictment, the 2 felony counts? Do you think we'll actually see him go to trial and maybe even be put behind bars? What's your take, Andy?
Well, memo to James Comey. We are not in D.C. or New York anymore. I think now we have an excellent shot, given the federal prosecutor, given the federal judge, and I think the odds are much better for the jury pool in that part of the country to be impartial. And those things are all critical. And, I mean, the facts and the law will definitely lead to James Comey going to prison if they're impartially followed.
What do you say, just to play devil's advocate, Andy, what do you say to the argument, okay, 86-47, it's a seashell formation, say, okay, he's the one that put the seashells together, along with his wife. They both put it together. But that's not a serious or real threat to the President of the United States. That, this is not him brandishing a gun. This is not him putting bullets and saying, this one's coming for you, Mr. President. that this can be just, interpreted as, get rid of the guy. Impeach him. 25th Amendment. I don't like him. Resign. In other words, that it's not enough. It's not enough of a menacing, explicit threat to secure a conviction in a court of law. What do you say to that argument?
Well, I say you go back about 30 years, and if this same scenario had been done to Bill Clinton when he was in the White House, it would have been considered a threat. I mean, everybody has known for decades, you don't issue a threat against the President of the United States. And everybody knows what a threat is. And this clearly was just that.
Oh, I agree. I mean, Andy, I completely agree. And I think Mark on Messenger earlier, I think to me had the checkmate argument when he said, okay, Jeff, you go and say 86-47. Or I go and say 86-47. Or if you want, let's say just under the Biden years, instead of 47, it was the 46th president, 86-46. What do you think would have happened? Well, the Secret Service would come knocking on your door. Why? Because it's an explicit threat. And by the way, that was Trump's argument last year. He goes, this guy was the head of the FBI. Trump was like, come on, let's all get serious for a second. That was an open call to assassinate the President of the United States. And Andy, what I think is even more disturbing is that this is clearly part of a plan by the Democrats. I don't think it's an accident that they made this indictment a couple days after Saturday and the third attempted assassination at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. They have been calling for Trump to be murdered or killed. It's been years now. Democrats, in the media, leftists, you name it. Deep staters like him. Look, in fact, it's now come out. Now, I'm talking about Saturday, but it's now come out that when the shots rang out, apparently a very prominent reporter said, I hope they get the orange mother effer. Okay, I can't say the F-bomb on the air, but a prominent journalist was caught, was overheard. Many people have said, no, it's true. Whereas the shots run out, I hope they get the orange mother effer. So, even those that were hiding under the tables were saying, get him, get him. I hope somebody gets him. And I've always had that fear. Look, I said it before. I'm going to say it again. The deep state tried to assassinate Trump in Butler. I don't believe the official narrative. I don't believe it. That Thomas Crooks acted alone? No way. That he knew the exact security layout all by himself? No way. That the FBI and the Secret Service, especially the FBI, that they shut down the investigation into that attempted assassination within days after it took place, breaking almost every protocol, that within several hours, the FBI was on the scene washing away evidence from the roof. I mean, it wasn't just cover-up. It was cover-up in naked daylight. So, no, I believe that the deep state has been trying to kill the president now for a long time. And basically, they had him in Butler, barring a miracle. And they almost got him in the Florida golf course. Now, we're going to see with this guy whether there was more to it than just him acting alone. But there was clearly a massive breach in his security. There's no question now. The Secret Service, look, there was, I had friends of mine from the Washington Times who I spoke to the next day. And they said, Jeff, we saw it with our own eyes. There were Secret Service agents who held the door open and were allowing guests to come in completely unchecked, unvetted. They didn't even have to show an invitation. They're like the maitre d'. Like, when you go to a restaurant or whatever, they just open the door for you. Hi, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. So this is what they said to me. They're not even trying to hide it. That they don't want to protect him. They're not interested in protecting him. So, Andy, I think you're completely right on this. I think there's no question that was a naked call to assassinate the President of the United States. And basically what it was Comey it was like how do I say this? Like ordering a hit. He basically came out and said, look, we couldn't stop him. We couldn't steal it. We couldn't put him behind bars. The SOB won the election. Now somebody, wink, wink, take him out. And they've been trying to take him out. And I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't even want to go down this road. But I fear that if he doesn't get better security, and maybe he may have to just hire his own private security. I said that after Butler. Maybe you can't trust the Secret Service or elements of the Secret Service anymore. Maybe, look, he's a wealthy man. God bless him. Pay for your own security. Because I'll tell you this, they won't be opening the door. And, if you're paying for security, they're not going to be opening the door and say, come on in, come on in. And and they're like, don't you want to see my ticket? Like, hold on. Don't you want to see my photo ID? Like, that's, it's me that matches the name on the invite? No, just come on in. Now, I don't get, nobody at the Secret Service is that incompetent. I'm sorry. No, it's impossible. So they're not even trying. They're not even trying to hide it. Andy, final word to you.
Final word, Jeff, and this basically has been building since the start of the week that, Jeff, what we're dealing with here is an insurrection. Albeit it's a rolling insurrection, but it is an insurrection. And I'm going to say it right now. I think President Trump needs to seriously consider right now invoking the Insurrection Act and just putting the 82nd Airborne in charge of presidential security until this mess can be sorted out.
I like that. Andy, I think it's even better than his own private security detail. I like that. Whatever, or get, I don't know, Navy SEAL Team 6, or I'm spitballing here, but in other words, get an elite team of the military who are loyal to you and say, no. From now on, they handle all my security. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to continue, obviously, to take calls. But before I do, I want you to listen now to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. And you can hear the confidence in his voice. And he's telling the American public, essentially, ignore the media. They're lying about Comey like they've been lying about everything else. What he did was unacceptable, illegal, and intolerable. And we are going to hold him now fully accountable. Roll cut 3A, Mike.
I think it's fair to say that threatening the life of anybody is dangerous and potentially a crime. Threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Department of Justice. Over the past year, this department has charged dozens of cases involving threats against all sorts of individuals. We take these seriously, every single one of them.
Now, notice, he says, we've prosecuted many other crimes, similar cases. Like, in other words, this is not our first rodeo. So, A, we know what we're doing. B, the media is trying to make it seem like this is a vendetta. That Trump is just going after Comey because he's, quote, a political enemy. No. We're going after Comey because he committed a crime. And I just want to read this text. It's this message, forgive me. A message I got on Messenger from Gary. And he's a loyal listener in Drake. And this is what he wrote. And I think he pretty much hits the nail right on the head. Jeff, Comey allegedly wrote 8647. And it is much worse coming from a man of his position. And I think this is really now the key point. He is attracting and encouraging all of the unstable people on the left to do his bidding. That's why it is so bad. He's not just some average Joe arranging seashells on a beach. In other words, a stupid gag. Like a bunch of teenagers. Hey, 8647. Secret Service investigates and they go, stupid kids, let it go. You know what I mean? And so Gary's point is he's completely right. He goes, look, come on. And this is what Todd Blanche is saying as well. This was the former head of the FBI. He was sending a message to unstable or mentally unstable people on the left, people like Cole Allen, as an example, or Thomas Crooks, I know that was before, in Butler, but these are the kinds of people, or Ryan Luth, that left-wing whack job that, wanted to shoot up Trump on the golf course in Florida. In other words, to unstable people on the left around the country. Kill him. He's a dictator. Kill him. Take him out. To me, that's why you prosecute. The argument about whether 8647 is enough of a true threat or not a true threat, to me, that's almost irrelevant. The former head of the FBI, one of Trump's public arch enemies, who did everything in his power to launch a coup, an insurrection against a sitting president, who lied about Russia and framed him, and was one of the cabal that framed him as an agent of the Russian state, of the Kremlin, goes out and says somebody needs to take this guy out. It was a clear call for assassination and murder. And there are so many deranged people on the left who would be more than happy. All they need is a little push, a little signal, a little encouragement, or in this case, a little quote-unquote order. Well, James Comey says he's got to go. The hero, Comey. The one that the left is lionizing, the media says is the great hero of our time. Well, if he says Trump's got to go, damn it, I'm going to get that shotgun, or I'm going to get that gun, or whatever, and I'm going to do it. That's why he needs to be prosecuted. Listen now to Todd Blanche, roll cut 3B, where he says, no. Don't make it seem like we're only going after one guy. We have done multiple prosecutions, both against people who threatened Biden and Trump. And they were very similar cases to this one. Mike, roll 3B, por favor.
For example, just today in the Northern District of Florida, there was a guilty plea from an individual who threatened multiple political leaders, including President Trump. In the Eastern District of North Carolina, where this case was indicted earlier today, there are multiple threats cases very similar to this one, including one where the defendant pled guilty recently to threatening former President Biden, another one that's scheduled to go to trial this summer, another one an individual was indicted for threatening Tom Homan. I say that to say that while this case is unique and this indictment stands out because of the name of the defendant, his alleged conduct is the same kind of conduct that we will never tolerate and that we will always investigate and regularly prosecute.
Bingo. Bingo. The only thing different is the name, but not the threat, not the nature of the threat, not the actual crime. And so he's like, so what? He's above the law? He should be able to get away with this because, you know what, because of his name, because he's James Comey? What, because he was the former head of the FBI and launched a witch hunt against Trump? No, 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 no. I'm sorry. No. No one is above the law. Now, let me personally, this is what I think is going to happen. And he mentioned how others pled guilty. And I believe this is what's going to happen. They're going to come out and they're going to start putting paper in front of them. They're going to start putting text messages, emails, witness accounts. And they're going to say, you lied about finding that rock formation or that seashell formation. No, it was you and your wife. That's perjury, my friend. You lied to investigators. You lied. Here it is. You're using the term 86 over and over and over and over again. Here are the witness statements saying you used the term 86 over and over and over and over. We've got you on perjury. And we're going to get you now on these 2 felony counts. You want to spend 20, 25, 30 years in prison? Because I'll tell you, a guy like you, they would love to destroy you in prison. Okay? Those criminals in there would love, if you get my meaning, wink, wink, okay? They would love to get a hold of you in prison. Is that what you want? Is that how you want to end your days? Or we can cut a deal. You plead guilty, and we'll give you a minimum sentence, and then they crack them. But what about Obama? What about Hillary? What about Susan Rice? What about your buddy John Brennan and Clapper? In other words, when you guys colluded together to lie about Trump being an agent of Russia, and then you illegally spied on his campaign, and then you illegally spied on him as president, and you tried to set him up as an agent of a foreign power, and then you guys installed Mueller and set up that whole Mueller witch hunt to overthrow a duly elected president of the United States. You give me incriminating explosive information. In other words, give me Obama on a platter. Give me Hillary on a platter. Give me Brennan on a platter. Give me, all of them, all of these people that were involved in this conspiracy. And then maybe we're not looking at 20, 25 years, Jim. Jim, maybe we can do minimum security a couple of years. And you can still see your grandchildren. And that's, to me, I think that's the play. And they're going to tell him, first one who talks gets the deal. Because apparently now Blanche is putting the screws into John Brennan. There's a huge investigation now into Brennan. They say in about a week or 2 we're going to find out indictments are going to be issued. And I think they have more on Brennan, frankly, than they even have on Comey. I mean, they've got Brennan completely dead to rights. There's no way Brennan's going to wiggle his way out of that one. So what I'm saying is, he's going to say, look, and I've got my hooks into Brennan. So both of you have the same information. Who talks first gets the deal. Who doesn't talk, I'm sorry, you're going away for the rest of your life. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze until you break them. And I've always said this. The key to getting the big fish is to get the middle fish. And the middle fish is Comey, Clapper, and Brennan, and McCabe. Now, just so that you know, they also have they also have Comey on perjury. And I don't just mean what he said to investigators. He claimed under oath that he never authorized any leaks to the media. Any. We know that's a lie. Because Andrew McCabe is number 2, the deputy director, testified under oath. In fact, he told the inspector general of the Department of Justice under oath that Comey specifically told McCabe to frame Trump as an agent of Russia, to push the Russia collusion narrative. Talk to the Wall Street Journal, talk to the New York Times, talk to the Washington Post, talk to This is CNN. So you have McCabe openly contradicting what Comey said. And on top of that, here's the cherry on the sundae. In front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. This is what I mean when I say Comey's not that smart. You see, when you lie and lie and lie, you know the expression, what a tangled web we weave when at first we begin to lie, or when we first begin to deceive, you lose track of your lies. So, he told Ted Cruz, no, what are you talking about? I never authorized again, under oath. I never told anybody. I never authorized anybody to talk to the media. Really? Because in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Comey admitted, I can read to you the testimony. Comey admitted in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee that he specifically authorized his good friend, that's what he called him, my good friend, Daniel Richman. You're going to say, Jeff, who the hell is Daniel Richman? He's a professor of law at Columbia University. And he actually gave him memos for Richman to distribute surreptitiously to the Wall Street Journal, to the Associated Press, to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, to NBC News, to CNN, to CBS, to ABC. He admitted it under oath. So, testimony in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee contradicts his own testimony in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So they've got him on perjury over and over and over and over again. So if I'm Todd Blanche and the DOJ, and I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of North Carolina, I'm like, hey, Jim, it's up to you, man. We can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. But, buddy, your reputation is going to be in tatters, and we've got you on so many perjury counts, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Is hating Trump worth it? Is protecting the dear leader and Hillary worth it? Is covering up for the deep state worth it? Because you'll never see your grandchildren again. Comey is a crook. He is a snake. He is a liar. He is a perjurer. And he's a traitor. And there is now a mountain of irrefutable evidence to prove it. And that's why I think Larry in Arkansas was not 100, but 1,000% correct. 1,000% correct. They couldn't get Al Capone for murder and extortion and racketeering and drug dealing and bootlegging, but they got him on taxes. They're going to get him on this stupid seashell Instagram post threatening to kill the president. But he knows there's a pile of crimes right behind that. And if they start prosecuting him on that, he's finished. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lock him up. And no, I'm willing to cut him a deal, but you got to give me a much bigger fish. And I want irrefutable evidence, conclusive evidence, smoking gun evidence. And by the way, this is what I voted for. All I'm saying is, why couldn't we have had Todd Blanche on day one as Attorney General? We'd have 24 people in prison by now. 617-266-6868, but better late than never. Okay, agree, disagree, should Comey go to jail? And do you think he will ever see trial? And do you agree with this decision now to prosecute Comey for threatening to kill or calling for the murder of President Trump? 617-266-6868. Who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Craig in Marblehead. Thanks for holding, Craig, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Craig.
I think we're all missing something here that I thought about on my drive home. He used seashells, correct?
Yes.
What's also known as a shell?
You mean like a bullet casing?
Bullet casing.
Craig, I think that's very perceptive. I think he likes to play these games. Remember, he's like a bit of an author. You know, he likes to do these mystery crime books and everything. So he likes to do what's called, a double entendre. He likes these sort of things where, you say one thing, but it also has double meanings. And I think you're onto something. What's another shell? A gun casing. If he put 8647 in spent gun shells or gun casings, then he couldn't wiggle his way out. But if he does the seashells, shells, 8647 in shells, well, it could be a seashell, but it could also mean wink, wink. The casings are the shells of a bullet. Wink, wink. You know what you need to do. Craig, was this, in your view, a deliberate threat or a deliberate call for President Trump to be murdered, in your view?
If I was on a beach, my first thought would be to write that in a bunch of seashells.
Do you think he just happened to find it the way he claims? That he and his wife were just taking a nice romantic walk? And I mean, I don't know, Greg, if you ever I've walked on the beach. Hell, I was walking on the beach in the Bahamas. I mean, I saw a seashell here, a seashell there, but I never saw any seashells, forming letters or forming numbers, never mind explicit messages like 8647. I've never, ever seen this or experienced it in my life. Have you, Craig?
Find a kid making a sandcastle before I found one of those.
Yeah, that's about it. I've seen kids playing with lunch these sand pails and these little shovels, and they're making a sandcastle, and maybe they use a shell here or a shell there, but I've never seen. Oh, look at this! Kill Kuhner. What the hell? What are the chances? Craig, final word to you. Is Comey going down? Do you think now they have enough evidence, a good enough prosecution team, a jury that's going to listen in North Carolina? Is Comey now going to be locked behind bars?
We get a completely different ball game here.
I agree. No, I really agree. And I think your point about the shells, and they could have a double meaning, which is, casings of a gun or of a bullet, forgive me, the shells of a bullet, I think you're absolutely correct. He's devious. He's a little snake. And this time he was too cute by half. Craig, excellent call. Again, what do I say, huh? What do I always say? Best audience in the business. It's true. I don't know what else to tell you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Former FBI Director James Comey was indicted for threatening the president when he transmitted the 8647 seashell photo last May. Will he go to trial this time? First time, he got off on a technicality, so they threw out the charges. This time, will he go to trial? A, yes. B, no. So far, very interesting. 54, basically 55% of you say no. You don't even think it's going to go to trial. 45% of you say yes, it will go to trial. So, I'd love to hear from those of you that are saying no, why you don't think it will go to trial. Is it because you think they'll rig it in favor of Comey again? Or do you think the case is just that weak? I'm just interested to hear your reasons. But anyway, you can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in national ER. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. Why do I always keep spelling my last name? Because I swear to you, even to this day, I get text messages, emails, correspondence where they still misspell my name. So I don't know what else to tell you. 617-266-6868. Eddie in Maine. Thanks for holding, Eddie, and welcome.
Good man. Eddie, Sebago Lake, Maine.
Eddie, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well. Welcome back. And listen, I work with the public every day. This conversation about Comey, it doesn't come up at all. All everybody is talking about, how do I pay for my food? How do I pay for my fuel? And I think President Trump got to get a little bit of Robin Hood, because we see that there's a $500 billion to $1 trillion a year being stolen from our tax money. Find a way to help us out on something, And the second thing is, I keep on hearing, if anything happens to President Trump, which I hope it doesn't, there's going to be a civil war. Can't even guarantee the man that the people are going to go out and vote in the midterms. And the third thing is, the guy that made the last attempt, it was an inside job. 5 different people shot at him. They wanted him to get into the room and do damage before they brought him down. Only thing that stopped him, the man tripped over his own feet. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, Eddie, I got to say, I've seen the video now multiple times. And number one, what struck me are 2 things. And you can agree or disagree, Eddie. I'm just calling it the way I see it. I couldn't believe how much room and space he had to run. Like, Cole Allen, he's just running. And with a gun, with a shotgun. And I'm like, he's walking around with a shotgun and nobody's like, hello? Where was the security? And then he's running through the checkpoint. I just found the whole thing so odd. How come there aren't Secret Service agents every 10 feet? How come there aren't security cameras in every corner? And clearly he's, trying to blast his way in. Now, what they're claiming, Eddie, is that the defensive perimeter worked. I'm not kidding. They're calling this a success. Prakash Patel came out and said, successful. The head of the Secret Service, successful. They're all saying, oh, no, the system worked. Well, why? Because he didn't get into the ballroom. And they said, no, we had different layers of defense. And so, he'd have to go through several more checkpoints if he was actually going to make it inside the ballroom. But I'm thinking, I'm looking at this. I'm like, you call this a success? He rents a room 24 hours before the event, and he comes in with a loaded shotgun, loaded handgun, multiple knives, as he himself said. He says it. What if I was an Iranian agent, a terrorist for Iran? What if I had a bomb on me instead of just a shotgun and a handgun? It'd be kaboom. The whole building would come crashing down. So, no, look, to me, Eddie, it is very clear. We're not just dealing with sloppiness or incompetence. People either deliberately turned a blind eye and don't care if President Trump or people around him are killed and shot, or he had help. He had help. Just like I believe Thomas Crooks in Butler had help. And I want to know who the mole is. We have to find out who the mole is. As I said, once, maybe. Twice, you got a serious problem. 3 times, it's internal sabotage. 617-266-6868. Paul in Bellingham. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. This is my first time talking directly to you. I've had Sandy a few times, but I've never had the pleasure of catching you.
Welcome. Welcome, Paul.
And I just want to set the record straight before we start. When Sandy answered the phone, I said, I'm from Bellingham, Maura Healey's favorite town of Bellingham. I cannot stand Maura Healey. And I didn't want her to think that I was in favor of her because I can't stand the lady. I had to have a little fun with that.
All right, Paul, my friend, what's on your mind?
Well, first question I have is, why is it nobody does, and I don't hear anything about lie detector. If this guy took a lie detector test, he'd fail it with flying colors.
Oh, no question.
And I guess maybe that doesn't hold up in court or whatever, but he's such a liar, Comey. He's full of you-know-what.
And I think his lies are what are going to bring him down. Really, I mean, I don't want to, be a broken record here, Paul, but really, that he found the seashells, nobody believes it. That he didn't know what 86 meant, nobody believes it. They have witnesses to prove it. They have emails. They have documents. He just lied too many times. And in about half an hour, I'm going to play another cut. This is his kind of video response to the indictment yesterday. And even then, he just can't shut up. And Sandy, to give her credit, since you're talking about Sandy, to give her credit, she's the one that spotted it. She said, Jeff, look at what that last sentence means. Again, that's why a lawyer, whether you're innocent or guilty, always says, shut up. Because if you're guilty, the more you talk, the more you're going to implicate yourself. And if you're innocent, yes, of course, you come out and say, hey, I'm innocent, this is garbage, and I'm going to fight it with everything I have. That's it. That's it. Never say anything more than that. Why? Because if they're out to get you, they're going to use everything you say, twist it, distort it, manipulate it, to use it against you. So that's why every lawyer worth his or her salt always tells the client, just shut up. Don't play to the cameras. You can do it after you win. Because now they've got their hooks into you. And, this is going to go to trial. And this guy could be looking at a lot of time in jail. Now, I know he's guilty of sin, but I'm just saying in general, even if you're innocent, here, okay? If someone says to me, hey, Jeff, really, they're railroading me. I had nothing to do with this bank robbery. I was in a different state. I wasn't even in the state. All right? Just shut up. I mean, say you're innocent, obviously, and it says garbage, and it's going to be proven in court. That's it. Don't say anything more. Because the more you talk, if they're targeting you, then you're just giving them rope to hang you with. And so I always say this to people. They go, well, the defendant is not saying anything. Yeah, because the lawyer is telling him not to say anything. Because the lawyer is smart. So, but my point just being about Comey, he can't shut up. He just couldn't. From the beginning, he couldn't shut up. If you remember, let's just go back 10 years, super quick. He goes out and holds a press conference regarding the investigation into Hillary Clinton. That's how Comey became nationally a known figure. And what did he do? Instead of just saying, we're not prosecuting Hillary Clinton, bye, that's it, let's move on. No. He's got to put on a show. He's got to be on the cover of every newspaper and magazine. He's a narcissist. No, he's James Comey. Hey, he's Elliot Ness. He wants people to make movies about him. So he gives reason after reason after reason that she's guilty. If everybody remembers 10 years ago, the private server and the compromising information and the 32,000 emails and how it all got disappeared and destroyed, and it could have, had classified or sensitive information. So you're listening to him and you're saying, well, he's going to indict her. Well, he's going to indict her. Like, this election is over. He's going to indict her as she's going to go toe-to-toe with Trump. And then at the last second, he says, well, we don't think we can prove our case in court. And everyone's like, what? And there he is, the magnanimous Comey. I showed you how bad the evidence was against her. Yak. But no, hey, I'm not going to interfere in this election. I'm not going to sink Hillary Rotten Clinton. I saved Hillary Clinton. He thought she was going to win. And so what he wanted to do, again, too cute by half. You see, Hillary, wink, wink, I could have buried you. The evidence was there to put you behind bars. But I didn't indict you. That's why you won against Trump. You owe me. I'm going to be your FBI director. Basically, I'm going to be your daddy. And the whole thing blew up in his face. Because conservatives rightly said you should have gone after her and indicted her, and you didn't. And Hillary's people were angry, saying, you made me look guilty. Even though you didn't indict me, you made me look guilty. So he ended up, teeing off both the Hillary people and the Trump people. Because he's an idiot. So what I'm just saying is he can't shut up. And he won't stop shutting up. It's been 10 years. The guy won't shut up. And he goes on all these left-wing media outlets, and he's always shooting his mouth off. And the problem he has now is that he's gone on CNN and MS Now so many times about how much he hates Trump and reviles Trump and how Trump is this existential threat to the United States and that Trump needs to be arrested and needs to be put behind bars. And he's the second coming of Adolf Hitler. That they're just going to come in court and say, here, this is what he's been saying. Clip, 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 clip. And here's him in emails talking about 86ing this, 86ing that. He knew exactly what it meant. He's calling for the murder of the president. And everything he's been saying leads up to him calling for the murder of the president. And his big mouth is going to sink him. Never mind all the lies he's told. So now he can't keep track. It's all, Comey has contradicted Comey. Under oath, he has said two opposite things under oath. Under oath, he said he never authorized anybody to speak to the media. And in a separate committee, under oath, he said, yeah, this guy, Daniel Richman, this Columbia University professor who's a friend of his, he said, yeah, I authorized them. Sure, I gave him memos, and I said, Spread it around. He was looking to smear Trump. Spread it around. Give it to the New York Times. Give it to the Journal. Give it to the Washington Post. So were you lying then? Or were you lying, in other words, were you lying in front of the Intelligence Committee, or were you lying in front of the Judiciary Committee? Because you said the exact polar opposite. So you perjured yourself. The only question is, did you perjure it in front of one committee, or did you perjure yourself in front of the other committee? Because two opposite stories can't be true. It's either one or the other. So, Paul, that's his problem. It's his big mouth. And the big mouth comes from his oversized ego. And it comes down to this. Okay, this is the Comey scandal in one sentence. When Chuck Schumer was caught on a hot mic, this is when Trump fired him in his first term. Schumer said, "You don't touch those guys because they'll get you 6 ways to Sunday." I'm paraphrasing him. In other words, how dare you fire me? I'm the head of the FBI. Just because what? You're the president of the United States? And you just got elected a couple months ago? And you think I work for you? No. The deep state doesn't work for you. You work for the deep state. As Schumer himself said, you don't touch those guys. They're untouchable. That was Trump's quote-unquote real crime. He said, I'm going to clean up the swamp. This guy's a dirty cop. He's a crooked cop. And he's out. And they're saying, no, we're going to teach this president, we're going to teach this guy, this real estate guy from New York. No. Elected officials don't run the country. The shadow government, the uniparty, the swamp, whatever you want, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, we run the country. You don't fire us, we fire you. And that's the scandal with Comey. And that's why they've been out to get Trump for the last 10 years. I'm telling you, had Trump come in and said, I'm going to play ball. I'm not touching the deep state, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the corruption on Capitol Hill. Everybody's going to keep making money. No one's going to be touched. It was all rhetoric on the campaign trail. They wouldn't give a damn. Okay, I want to play a little bit more of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. And the reporters now were, as I said, circling the wagons. They're thunderstruck, absolutely thunderstruck, that Comey has been indicted. They now realize that with Blanche, you have a very different Department of Justice. He's much more proactive, much more aggressive, unlike it was under Pam Bondi. And so, as I said, Fauci's top advisors have now been indicted. You now have John Brennan is maybe 7 days or 10 days away from being indicted as well. And of course, they just dropped the hammer on Comey. And so they're asking now about the arrest warrant that was issued. And they're trying to make it seem like, well, is Comey really such a public threat that he has to be actually physically arrested? And listen to Blanche's response. Roll cut 4, a mic.
Justice Department, in this filing today, also issued an arrest warrant for Mr. Comey. Is it your belief that he is a continued public threat? And is there a request also for detention that you anticipate will be made in this case?
So the Department of Justice does not issue arrest warrants, grand juries do. And so the grand jury returned an indictment and arrest warrant. I expect that there will be communication with Mr. Comey's counsel, and we'll go from there. This case will proceed like hundreds of others do every year. There will be some sort of arraignment set by the judge or assigned to the magistrate judge, and when that happens, you'll know about it.
So basically, we're going to arrest him. The grand jury is the one that issued the arrest warrant. Now, this is a point that Blanche keeps hammering over and over again. They presented evidence in front of the grand jury. They made the decision that Comey needed to be indicted. They thought there was more than sufficient evidence for 2 felony counts. So listen now to Blanche, because a reporter is saying, well, how do you prove intent? Okay, he writes 8647, but how do you prove motivation, intent, that he wanted the president dead, that he wanted someone to assassinate or kill the president? And listen now to Blanche. He doesn't want to show his cards too much, but he gives them just a taste. Roll cut 5, Mike.
How will you prove intent when, as the director had acknowledged, Mr. Comey said he did not associate 86 with doing harm, and he took it down promptly, said it was political speech, not an intent to harm the president?
Well, it's not. This case was indicted today. This conduct occurred about a year ago, May 15th of last year. There's been a tremendous amount of investigation. And how do you prove intent in any case? You prove intent with witnesses, with documents, with the defendant himself to the extent it's appropriate. And that's how we'll improve intent in this case. And so I think that talking about what Mr. Comey will or will not do if there's a trial, when there's a trial, it's very premature for me to do that today.
In other words, you think we're just going to go by the Instagram post? That's what he's saying. Well, you think we're just going to go in front of a grand jury? In front of a jury? My mistake. You think we're just going to go in front of a federal jury and say, well, look, here's the seashell formation, 8647, and he blasted it out on his social media, and there you go. We want you to convict. He's saying, no, we've got witnesses. We've got emails. We've got documents. What do you think? You better believe we're going to show intent. And I'm telling you, they're going to show that he lied to investigators. And that's how he and McCabe destroyed Michael Flynn. And now the same thing that he did to Flynn is going to be done to him. This is such poetic justice, it's not even funny. Now, listen to Blanche. Because the media was saying, well, why now? I mean, this happened, last May. Why now? So what changed all of a sudden? Listen again to Todd Blanche saying what? You think we just got up yesterday and said, okay, let's slap together a case? We've been working on this for a while. We've been dotting our I's and crossing our T's. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
Director Comey posted this almost a year ago. Why bring this case now? Did you always feel like this was a strong prosecution, or did something change recently?
This investigation just didn't come now. It's the result of a lot of work by law enforcement over the past year. We don't time when we bring cases around anything other than when the investigation is at a place where we should go to the grand jury, and that's exactly what we did in this case as well.
Now, he's completely right. Okay, he's completely right. And the ultimate point, and I want to play Blanche, and this is what's going to sink Comey. Okay, it's his arrogance. There's no question that he thought he could play games and he could make threats and that he was above the law. And I want you to listen now to Blanche saying, no. The days of threatening Donald Trump are over. It is illegal to threaten to murder or assassinate the President of the United States. And if you do it, we're going to come after you with everything we've got. Roll cut 6, Mike.
As far as other incidents of threats against the President of the United States, those will be investigated. Every case is different. The facts are different. Who makes the threat matters. What the threat says matters. You're right. The question about intent matters, and we have to prove that. That's something that's our job, and that's something that prosecutors will have to do in front of a jury at the right time. But you cannot compare. It's not fair to the American people. It's not fair to the defendant. And it's certainly not fair to the prosecutors to compare, well, if you did it here, why didn't you do it there? Every case is different, but there's one thing that will never be different, which is that you cannot threaten to kill the President of the United States. Full stop.
Full stop. And that's the problem now the left has, because they're obsessed with wanting to kill the president. They can't help themselves. And so now they're going to see their hero potentially go down. Now, speaking of their hero, this is Comey. So now he's been indicted a second time after what he posted on Instagram. Now, if you're a normal, sane person, not a megalomaniac, not this deep state liar and crook and hack, you would say something to, I'm innocent and I'm going to fight this with everything I have, and say nothing else. But not him. He's got to present himself as the hero of the resistance. He's a martyr. He's leading the resistance against Trump. He's going to sacrifice himself on the altar of democracy, because this is all about fighting evil orange man, the wannabe dictator. So Comey has to go on Substack and cut a video of himself. And again, he just can't shut up. He keeps talking and talking and talking. Roll cut 8, a mic.
Well, they're back. This time about a picture of seashells on a North Carolina beach a year ago. And this won't be the end of it. But nothing has changed with me. I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary, so let's go. But it's really important that all of us remember this is not who we are as a country. This is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith.
Now, as Sandy pointed out, again, you see how long-winded he is? Right? In other words, shut up. Just shut up. As any lawyer will say, shut up. But no. He's got to play to the gallery. He's got to play to the moonbats. I guess he wants to sell another book. He's got to play to the left and to the Democrats. You know, I'm a persecuted hero. I'm the martyr. So if you catch his last line, this is not how the Department of Justice is supposed to be. Right? As he says before that, this is not who we are as a country. And the good news is we get closer every day to restoring those values. Keep the faith. What does that mean? As Sandy rightly put it, there's almost something ominous, almost something threatening. It's almost like wink, wink. Your days are coming to an end. That's what he's essentially saying. Your days are coming to an end. In other words, okay, this is not how our country's supposed to be. He's a dictator. This is not how the DOJ is supposed to be. He's a dictator. But every day we're getting closer to restoring those values, meaning Trump is going down. Keep the faith. Even now he's playing games. Even now he's issuing cryptic threats. Or am I reading too much into this? 617-266-6868 is the number. I'm telling you, this guy is one SOB. He is one POS, one SOB. And joining me now to talk about this, as she always does at this time, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, full disclosure, yes, I married Super Up. That's why we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary last week in the Bahamas. And I've enjoyed every single one of those 30 years. Grace Vuoto. Grace, I've got to ask you right out of the gate, did Trump make a good move or a bad move in having Todd Blanche take over from Pam Bondi and now go ahead with the prosecution and the indictment of James Comey?
First off, let me say you're the best husband ever.
Oh, thank you. I've been waiting 30 years for this.
You know you get that on a daily basis. All right, so another note. Okay, so regarding Blanche, look, I am not a fan of Todd Blanche because I believe that he was part of the cover-up with Pam Bondi regarding the Epstein files. So I'm hoping that this just does remain an acting, appointment, and then he chooses somebody that will give those victims justice. However, I am delighted to see, had he not been involved in the cover-up, right, I would have been cheering everything that he's doing now because, yes, it's amazing. Right now, what he's doing is great. So I applaud him for a couple of things, not just the Comey indictment, which even if we don't go all the way with it, it does send a message to the political class. The process itself is the punishment. His reputation is being destroyed. He's being exposed for the wrongdoing that he did, even if we don't get a full prosecution. And Jeff, what he did, though, in defending pro-life activists is also formidable. Remember that gentleman who, during the Biden years, was arrested with a whole SWAT team outside of his door. He got $1 million from the Justice Department. And so now people that want to protest at pro-life abortion clinics, if they're pro-life, they can feel free to do so. The Justice Department has our back on that. So good things are being done by Todd Blanche, no question.
What do you make of this indictment in particular? Do you think it has legs? And will it go to trial? And will Comey eventually go behind bars?
I think if this is all that we have, it's not sufficient to go too far, because he did take it down right away, so his lawyers can argue, this was a bit of a misunderstanding, or his intention was not to get somebody, there might be some wiggle room is my point. I think there's got to be a lot more to it. So unless we see what else do they have to show that he truly wanted to provoke somebody to commit that act. I certainly took it that way. I did, because I don't like him. I've been very suspicious of him. When I saw that post, I was horrified, and I was among those who wanted it to be taken down immediately. I certainly took it that way. My fear is that to convince a jury to actually put him behind bars, they're going to need to show us what else they have, that it wasn't just like, get rid of the guy from office, meaning let's elect somebody else, or impeach him. Could it be interpreted differently by some members of the jury? And I think there's enough wiggle room if it's just the post.
What did you make, I know you touched on it, but 8647, when he put that up and then claimed that he just saw it on the beach, this seashell formation. At first he said it was his wife. She saw it and said, Jim, come on over here, Jim. Take a look at this. Is this an address? What is this, Jim? And then he, said cool rock, whatever, cool shell formation, and he just blasted it out on social media. Was he sending a cryptic message to his deep state friends, deep state operatives? Wink, wink. We got to get some unstable person. Someone needs to take Trump out. Was this a call to assassinate the president, in your view?
In my view, yes, Jeff. I think there's no question about it. That's a very strange post to make, even if you did see a funky shell formation on the beach. Jeff, you were on vacation. Did you post, hey, look at this funky shell formation? And And especially if you're a member of law enforcement, where you realize that, a post like that could be interpreted in many different ways, So I think there's definitely, he knew what he was doing. I took it as a threat. I took it as he was trying to incite violence. And I'm hoping that a jury sees it the same way.
Are we now seeing a different, is Rocky, is everything okay with Rocky?
I do not know why he's going berserk right now, which he never does. So I think he's seeing something.
Did the kids feed him this morning?
To the audience.
Because he gets a little grumpy if you haven't fed him breakfast.
Some threat outside, or maybe he's weighing in, saying that.
No, you mentioned James Comey, and even Rocky knows the guy's guilty. Rocky's like saying, no, he's guilty. Put him behind bars. I mean, I can understand Rocky's speech. Now, let me ask you. Are we now seeing a concerted effort under new leadership? I know you're not a big fan of Blanche over the Epstein files, but overall, the fact that Pam Bondi is gone, vamoose, she's out. Are we now seeing Donald Trump refocusing on fulfilling one of his key campaign pledges, that deep state criminals are going to be put behind bars? Is this now the beginning of more people like, crooks and criminals like Comey, whether it's Brennan, whether it's Clapper, whether it's Fauci? Are we going to start to see more arrests, more prosecutions, and hopefully some people going to jail?
About it. He's very aggressive. He's very smart. He's tough. He also knows how to handle the media, and he doesn't seem to just crave the limelight for its own sake. So he's a huge improvement from Pam Bondi, and I do think that we're going to get much better results with him. We're already seeing it, like I said, with the defense of the pro-life activists and exposing what the Biden department did in that regard. Already, I'm delighted at what he's done. And this, too, even if we don't get the full results that we want with Comey, I do think it sends a message to the entire political class: don't mess with conservatives in the future. You'll pay a price of some kind. And that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Well, at a minimum, it's going to cost them a ton of money. I mean, these legal fees. In other words, what he did to Michael Flynn, which was essentially bankrupt the poor man, well, this may cost him millions of dollars. I'm talking Comey now, because the lawyers that he's had to hire now, they're not cheap. Let's put it that way. So in a way, he's getting a taste of his own medicine. He destroyed Flynn. He bankrupted Flynn. Even if he skates, this is going to cost him a lot of cash. Final word to you, Dr. Grace. We've got about 30 seconds.
Right, Jeff. It's a lot of cash. It's a lot of aggravation. And it's a big, big hit to his reputation. So that's why I applaud what Blanche is doing. Everybody that was involved in sabotaging the will of the people during Trump's first term, and even those that are involved in it right now, need to understand that there's going to be consequences for that going forward. So that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Amen. Amen. All right, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto. Grace, we will be talking to you next week, same time, same place, here on the Kuhner Report. And give Rocky my best. Tell him Daddy says hi. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. You heard Grace. She says it's a victory even if Comey is not convicted. Do you agree? And let me ask all of you the ultimate question. Did Todd Blanche, did the Department of Justice, did the Eastern District of North Carolina, the U.S. Attorney, did they make the right decision to go after Comey for threatening to kill the President of the United States? I was just telling Sandy while we were off air, I bet he spotted Rocky now. I bet he spotted a squirrel or a rabbit, in the backyard or something. He loves to chase them. Not that he ever catches them, but he loves to chase them. And okay, Rocky, you're the big guard dog. You're protecting us. Anyway, 617-266-6868 is the number. I'm just a little baffled, and I would love the great audience of Kuhner Country to weigh in on this. On the poll question of the day, which is essentially, in a nutshell, will Comey's indictment actually end up going to trial? Will it actually, not will he be convicted or not, but will it actually go to trial? You know, will he actually have to sit in a courtroom and the case will be heard? A majority of you, not a big majority, but a slight majority of Kuhner Country, according to the poll results, you're saying no. It won't even make it to trial. And I'd love to know why. Because the poll question is telling me, not most of you, but a majority of you say it just won't happen. But I'm not getting any text messages why, any emails why, any messages on Messenger why, and so far not one caller. Is it because you think it's too much of a reach, that the indictment is potentially too weak? Or do you think that somehow they're going to rig it in favor of Comey and he will get away like he got away the first time? I'm just curious why a majority of you don't think it's going to even make it to court, to a trial. I'd love to know why. 617-266-6868 is the number. Brooks in Florida. Thanks for holding, Brooks, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Hi, Brooks.
Yeah, I think Rocky was setting off my dog, Bo Duke, because when Grace was on, I thought for sure it was Bo. And I'm like, Kim, what's going on with the dog? And so he comes in my office, and Rocky's voice was, was pretty vocal. So Bo starts getting a little nippity.
So there you go. I mean, maybe they're communicating amongst themselves. You know what I mean?
Well, border collies, they're supposed to be the smartest dogs, Jeff. So I don't know what Rocky is, but there's some intelligence going on between Bo Duke and Rocky. What kind of dog
you mentioned
is Rocky?
Comey, and look how the poor dogs, the poor dog, they start barking.
Yeah. Well, for the record, Jeff, what kind of dog is Rocky?
He's a cockapoo.
Yeah. All right. Another brainiac.
Yeah, no, very nice. Honestly, very sweet dog. I'm not saying that because he's my Rocky. Really, very sweet, very gentle, and smart. You're right. Smart dog.
Bird dog, as I recall.
That's right. Yep. Very good. I mean, honestly, look, they're not going to guard your house. If a burglar comes in and, within 30 seconds, Rocky's going to be licking him and wants to play with him. So Rocky's no big protection, but he's a great family dog.
So is the border collies. Yeah, they're going to show the thief where the silverware is. But...
Exactly. Okay. They'll take him to the, no, go in the freezer. It's in the freezer. Just go. You'll see what I mean. Brooks, what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, so right out of the gate, I don't think Comey is going to serve any time on the Seychelles, Jeff. But to Grace's point, there's a lot of frustration and money that goes along with this, with depositions. And the interesting thing is when he posted that video, he looked really, really haggard. And the first thing he said is he's not worried. BS. When the federal government comes down on you, just like he came down, he hurt a lot of innocent people. And I thought it was great that that both you and Grace mentioned, you mentioned Flynn, and then Grace also mentioned the abortion scenario where the guy just got a winning lawsuit. And by the way, last week, General Flynn posted that he had sued the federal government over Comey when Comey sneakily said, well, it was early enough in the administration. I sent a couple of guys over. Generally, there's process involved, but it was early enough we did it. This was the initial, let us never forget, this was the initial Russia hoax. What they really hammered on Flynn with is having an inappropriate conversation with a Russian somebody. So anyway, here we are 10 years later, and
Brooks, can you do me a favor? I'm up against the break. Please hang on. Okay, let's go right back to Brooks in Florida. Brooks, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, so what I was saying earlier is that General Flynn was the first victim. Comey left a lot of dead bodies on the ground, and I think that, the indictment proves basically that his arrogance eventually is going to meet consequences. Ultimately, I don't think he's going to be found guilty. However, I think the shame, the costly process involved is taking its toll. However, there might be something through discovery. I always wonder, Jeff, when this happened, maybe they, being now Kash Patel's FBI, went down and put a few officers on that beach to grab the shells and start wondering, okay, what was the tide? Is it high tide? Is it low tide? Did you touch the shells? Show me where you so there's going to be possible that dog might hunt. So personally, I think that whole line of he found it is probably not true. So we might have some meat on the bone there. But, one thing I wanted to bring up is back in the horrors of like 2022, 2023, it was a really creepy interview. And I forgot who it was. Somebody on The View, some vicious leftist was interviewing him, and they said, well, how would you even incarcerate a president? How would that physically work? And this was during the time when Trump was getting his picture down at Fulton County, and the left kept threatening that he was going to have to at least spend the night. These prisoners were dying of intestinal lice, and so Comey at that time said, "Oh, that's super easy. We've already thought about it." And don't forget, he was just a citizen when he made this comment, and he said, "Oh yes, well that's easy. We'll have a double wide at the back of the prison yard. The eventual prison yard will be housed, and so that will then be monitored, and we'll have special detail and security back there." So they were already concocting something up to house the president. They were just viciously sharpening their knives. They were going to slow torture Trump, mentally, maybe physically, I doubt it, but mentally. And so Comey took down a lot of innocent people. So that we're just returning the favor, man. We're just returning the favor.
Amen. And I got to say, that is an incredible point. You are right. I forgot about that. And you're right. He did give that interview. It was in the midst of the lawfare against Trump. And you're right. By then, he had been a private citizen for 5-6 years. And they were saying, well, yeah, but, he's a former president. How do you can't just put him in the general population. And I'll never forget it. You're right. He said, oh, no, we've thought about this already. And I'm like, whoa. What do you mean we've thought? We? Who's we? And we've thought about this. What do you mean? You've been thinking about this for 5-6 years, how to put him behind bars? And where to actually, incarcerate him in a prison? Like, whoa, you guys have been planning this for a long time. And you're right. The way he said it was going to be a double wide on the side of the prison. I mean, they were like a dog in a cage, going back to Rocky and Your Beautiful Dog. It's just, they were going to put him like a dog in a cage. And you're right. They were going to psychologically, mentally torture him. And they were getting their jollies off of it. They were getting off on it. And, to me, this is just, as I said, it's poetic justice. It's his just comeuppance. And look, I hope they have the evidence to put him away. Because, man, nobody deserves to be put behind bars more than Comey. Thank you so much for that call, Brooks. Really good call. 617-266-6868 is the number. And if you remember, I don't want to go down memory lane, but just very quick, the original Russia collusion hoax was applied to Flynn before they even applied it to Trump. And so remember, Flynn was the incoming national security advisor. And by the way, this is done in every administration, every new incoming administration. And so, well, a couple weeks before the official inauguration, people already know who's going to be the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor. I know they have to be confirmed, but there's a sense of, this person's been tapped. The cabinet's already been pretty much lined up. And so ambassadors will already start to meet people coming in to the administration. There'll be like a cocktail party or a meet and greet or whatever. Now, this has happened for hundreds of years. So Flynn is going to be the incoming national security advisor. He's at a meet and greet party. There are over 20 ambassadors at the party. So it wasn't just the Russian ambassador. There were ambassadors from France, from Italy, from Poland, from, Ukraine, you name it. And Flynn is just, greeting them. Like literally just like, hi, nice to meet you. Nice. Okay. You're with Russia. I got you. Okay. Oh, you're with France. Okay. Oh, you're with Denmark. Okay. Okay. Good. Well, we'll have plenty to talk about once we have the president is inaugurated. And Flynn did nothing more than shake the ambassador's hand, the Russian ambassador, like every other ambassador in the room. And that scumbag Comey wanted to prove that somehow there was a cryptic message that was exchanged between Ambassador Igor and Flynn. And so he sends these two FBI agents. And he even says, don't tell him to get a lawyer. Because, Flynn was like, well, do I need a lawyer? No, they tell him, they write him, this is just routine. We're just asking a few questions, dot our I's, cross our T's. You don't need a lawyer. It's not an interrogation. Far from it. We're just almost having like a casual chat. So he says, okay, come on down. So it was, and they set him up. And then the two FBI agents were asking, well, you met the ambassador. What did you say to the ambassador? Why did you go to the party? Why was he there? And Flynn's like, I don't know why he was there. There were 20, 25 other ambassadors there. Well, when he shook your hand, how long did you shake? I'm not kidding. They were like, get it. And so they finished this so-called interview, and they come back. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. They come back and they tell this to Comey. Comey's like, well, he lied, right? And they're like, no. They write in their report that they don't believe Michael Flynn lied or perjured himself in any way, shape, or form. Comey overrides the agents and their report and says, no, he lied. He lied to investigators. And that's perjury. That's a crime. And they used that and hung it over his head like the sword of Damocles. And that's when the poor guy had to get a lawyer. And that's when they bankrupted him. Where this poor guy said, I'm going to lose my house. And even then, Flynn was trying to fight on. So then they went after his son. And they said, we're going to go after your son. So we're not only going to bankrupt you, we're going to bankrupt him. And when Flynn said, once they came after my son, I said, forget it. Just I'll agree to anything you want me to agree to. They destroyed Flynn's career. In many ways, they destroyed his health. He's never been the same again. Over nothing. Over a pack of lies. Now, I'm telling you, when Comey was interviewed by investigators over that 8647 post, he lied. He lied. And they're going to do to him what he did to Flynn. As I said earlier in the show, karma, you know what I want to say? I can't say it. Karma is a bee. What comes around goes around. Mark in Lowell. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, good morning.
Hi,
I just had 2 points, one on Comey and one on the Secret Service that we have. The Comey one is, it doesn't matter if he put the shells there or not. He decides to distribute to his base based off of influencer, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know why we're concentrating on him putting the shells together, because unless there's a film showing it, there's no proof. But there is proof of him sending it out because it's on his Instagram or wherever the hell he put it on. And he just got a bunch of likes. And as far as I'm concerned, all those...
Mark, can you do me a favor? I'm up against a break. Please hang on. You're making a very good point. 9:49, 9:50 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Let's go right back to Mark in Lowell. Mark, please pick up where you left off.
As I was saying, the entire thing should not be focused on the shells on the beach, but on him distributing the information as an influencer through his social media, which means he's the person that is instigating the problem. Who cares who wrote the shells? It could have been a bunch of college kids who had a beach party. Who knows? But unless you have actual video doing it, then that's the only way you can go. But I'm sure the conviction or the indictment, not conviction, the indictment had something to do with, real proof of something. Just like Kathy Lee Griffin should be also right now put on the chopping block for her holding the head of President Trump decapitated.
Yes, no, you're dead on. Mark, you're dead on. In fact, Mark, I want to read to you a text message because it's right on point to what you're saying. And this is from 781. You can text the Kuhner Man 70470. 781. Jeff, and this goes to your point. The seashell message was to rogue actors within the intelligence community to activate the people that they have been working. So, quote unquote, handlers would get nut jobs to act against Trump. In other words, to your point, who put the shells, who didn't put the shells, by him taking that picture and then blasting it out on social media, it was a wink, wink. It was a clear, his intent, his signal was clear. Assassinate the President of the United States. And I don't see how Comey can worm his way out of this. He's going to try, obviously. He's got the best lawyers money can buy. But to me, the intent is crystal clear. And he took the picture, he posted it, he sent it out, and there's no walking that back. Please, Mark, pick up. I mean, am I wrong or agree, disagree?
And his lawyers are going to concentrate on the shells. And what the prosecution needs to concentrate is on the intent of why did he take the picture and send it out, other than one reason only, for the wink wink thing. Now, can I go on to the other subject, or we're not going to have time?
No, it's fine. Just be very quick, please. Go ahead.
Okay, very quick. I think a military tribunal needs to be set up, and the maitre d's with guns and earpieces are the defendants. And their goal is who told them to do what they were supposed to do, which is allow them through. And whoever that person is, then go after that person until you find I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the whole Secret Service is corrupted, and we got to clean it up. I almost want to say everyone is suspended, get the SEAL team, whatever, in place, and they know how to protect whoever they're trying to protect, or so on, and just do it, and go after the entire Secret Service and figure out who the bad players are, because it's coming somewhere from the top.
There's no question. No, Mark, there's no question. And I love your idea of how to investigate this. Well, who was the one that kept turning a blind eye and this guy had a shotgun, handgun, knives, and he was armed. I mean, that was a loaded gun. The guns were loaded to the point that he's bragging, and not even bragging. Bragging is not the right word. He shocked himself, Cole Allen. Like, this is too easy. He's like, they're just letting me walk on through. I've got a loaded gun here. I've got a loaded shotgun, and they're not looking. They're not bothering to look. They're not vetting. They're not checking. So, anyway, excellent point, Mark. Quickly, Sal, I hate to do this to you, Sal in Wakefield. Less than a minute. The floor is yours. Go.
Let me start off by saying I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think it's even going to make it to trial. This guy is so deep state that he would sing like a bird. And it goes all the way back to 2015 with the Russian collusion. And we all know who's behind all of this. It's Barry Hussein Obama, had his third term to fundamentally transform the United States, which was the Biden term, but it was him. And he'd sing. Didn't Hillary Clinton say once, if I go down, this whole place is going down?
Yes.
So I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, and this leads, if he does sing, I think they're going to Epstein him.